Oh, welcome back to my channel, sports fans. Okay, let's get into this right here. A special video for the LeBron James lovers. A special video that debunks all the lies. It really takes him out of the top 20 for me. Takes him out of the top 20 for me. This will be the knockout blow. So as we heard, that LeBron James faced all these super teams while his super teams was excused. For some reason, his super teams weren't able to overcome, either get the hell beat out of them in the NBA Finals or some kind of excuse where his super teams always got hurt. Pretty funny. But did LeBron James ever face a super team in the NBA Finals? And what constitutes a super team? Because they will always tell you that a super team is just future Hall of Famers. So every team that had future Hall of Famers, that was, pretty much had three guys that was future Hall of Famers. This was a super team? That ain't how we always known a super team to be. We always known a super team to be like guys colluding to come together who were other teams' number one franchise players of another team and who were future Hall of Famers, came together and made a super team. Now, you have a super team out of their prime, and you have super teams in their prime. Now, I really don't know other than you guys got to, maybe in the LeBron James era, I guess you can say it was one other team than LeBron James that did the super team collude in their prime, and they fell off, well, they came up short. And I think they just did it to steal money from the fans, because the LeBron James era guys, this is what they're good for. They're good for stealing money from the fans and not being accountable for stealing money from the fans. And for some reason, this fan base doesn't care. The LeBron James era fan base doesn't care. They don't hold these players in the LeBron James era accountable for making the money that we are told that they make. And that's a whole, you can do a whole different video on that. The NBA has to be the biggest money stealing sports league of any league. And that's been going on, I would say, since at least 2015. The biggest money stealing league in history. And it's not even close. And they still haven't stopped. And to me, this is mainly because the fans today, they don't hold these players accountable. Because to me, as we'll get back into this video, these aren't real NBA fans. Okay, you can't have real, I won't even get into it. We'll just venture off somewhere else. But I have every reason, and we can do a whole video on that. But so you have a super team out of the prime and a super team in their prime, which is something recent that we just seen with the LeBron James in particular, but we can say his era period, we've had super teams. But not the super teams we've been told that he went against, because he never went against one super team. So for instance, we talk about the big three Celtics, who were old, busted up, and beat up in the 2000s. Came together, I think they were together for like 6 years, only won one championship in those years. Definitely out of the prime. It was so bad that, LeBron James got the MVP Kobe got the MVP in 2008. And then LeBron James got it back-to-back seasons. And none of those guys were able to win an MVP. Because they were good, they just weren't that good. And that's why they came together, because on their own, they were unable to lead a team anywhere. All-time great players, but on their own, they were unable to lead a team anywhere. We'll get back into them in a minute. Well, Clyde Drexler, Charles Barkley, and Hakeem Olajuwon, an old, busted up super team. And what was their fate? If I'm not mistaken, I think they were together for 3 years. I think 1 year they came close to going to the finals, but they got beat by I know they got beat by Utah in back-to-back seasons, right? The Plummer crew. They got beat back-to-back seasons by that team. Now, how great was that team if the Plummer crew beat them in back-to-back seasons? Old, busted up, and broke. Who else? Well, we can talk about the 80 Lakers to an extent. You could say that was a super team. I don't think Robert Parrish was another team's #1 franchise player. Kevin McHale was drafted. Who is this? Larry Bird was drafted. And then we can talk about Dennis Johnson. And then we can talk about, what's this guy's name? Oof. The 7-footer from the Trailblazers. Goodness God, I forget his name. But he ended up being a top 75 player. And Dennis Johnson is a Hall of Famer. Now, we can say those guys were beat up and out of their prime. So I don't think we can constitute that as a super team. And then we look at a lot of great players that was already on the Celtics when Bird arrived. And Bird got drafted. Well, great Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers. But Tiny Archibald was on that team. What's this other guy's name? But they were all basically Celtics. So no super team there. And like I said, all those guys were old and busted up. So I don't really consider that a super team. I just can't. Now, if we want to go that way, I can use that later on, and I'll tell you what I mean. The Lakers, I think they got Bob McAdoo. I can't remember the other guy that was out of his prime. I mean, these guys were playing like no minutes, man. Just like coming off the bench, whatever. Anyways, Worthy was drafted. Magic was drafted. Kareem, he was already with the Lakers for about 5 years. Michael Cooper got drafted. Byron Scott got drafted. I'm not sure how that could be a super team. And again, what constitutes a super team? We done told you. Other teams' #1 franchise players. So if you was a #1 franchise player and a future Hall of Fame guy, you can be a part of a super team, but it needs to be 3 guys. Can't be 2. It has to be 3. You know, when Pippen came, Clyde went on that team. Barkley, Pippen, and Olajuwon. Beat up and broke and out of their prime. Let's look at Golden State. 15, Draymond Green, Clay, Steph Curry, all drafted to the same team. So we add Durant in 2017, and we still don't have a super team. We still don't have other teams' #1 franchise players except for 2 guys. 2 guys. So when we go to the Spurs, we already know better. Ginobili, Parker, Duncan, you know, whenever you want to throw David Robinson into the equation, all drafted to the Spurs. When we look at the 60 Celtics, all their main players were drafted. All their main players were drafted. Casey Jones, Havlicek, Bill Russell, Cousy. I forget the other guy's name. Always made the big shots. Basically, all the core guys were drafted to the Celtics. Now, I do remember them getting some other guys, but they were way past their prime as far as like free agents or whatever like that. Whatever they used to call it back then. They were done on their last leg. And basically, they didn't do much but come off the bench and get a couple minutes. Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, and Jerry West. Only one guy out of those three wasn't drafted to the Lakers. Wilt Chamberlain, well past his prime at that time. Elgin Baylor, a crypt keeper, way out of his prime at that time. And they weren't a super team because two of them was drafted to the Lakers. I'm just trying to find another super team, in essence, a real legit super team that would, in their prime, that wasn't drafted. Well, two of them wasn't drafted to the same team. It was a Hall of Famer, because to me, LeBron James is the only guy not only to do this once, but to do this twice. He did it in Miami. Three guys were other teams' #1 franchise players. And then we can talk about the second season, when, was it the second or third? I guess it might have been the third. Ray Allen shows up. And he, out of his prime, like we talked about some other teams, he has some Hall of Famers way out their prime. So we're not going to really use that, but we can use the big three, Miami Heat. And it came in the same draft. And they were supposed to compete against each other. I guess when did Dwight Howard come? Like a couple years later? So all these guys were supposed to compete in the in the East. Dwight Howard. We can say Paul Pierce to an extent, but Paul Pierce had already been in the league since '99. So this is 2008, 2007, 8. So he's been in the league for like 8 years. No, he came in '98. Yeah, I think he came in '98. I would say he's like on the edge of being past his prime. So I want to throw him in the same boat as those guys. But, because to me, he's in the same boat with a Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter. And I would say Allen Iverson and Kobe and Duncan and those type of guys. And then you had the guys that come later, the Dwayne Wades and, the LeBron James, the Chris Boshes, the Dwight Howards. And these guys were supposed to be competing against each other next. Basically in the 210s. That was supposed to be their prime, competing against each other. And when we talk about the other guys, they were supposed to be winning in the early 2000s. They're all together. The Tim Duncans, the Vince Carters, the Jason Kidds, even the Steve Nashes. What do we say? The Grant Hills, the Allen Iversons, Kobe Bryant's, Shaq to an extent, the Ben Wallaces. These are supposed to be the guys who are supposed to be winning in the early 2000s. I would say up until, about 2007, 2008. This was their time to win. The Dirk Nowinski's. Who else is in that West? I guess, I don't know. When did Amari Stoudemire come into the league? Goodness God. I can't think. He had to come. Didn't he come in? He had to come in around the Dwight Howard, right? Well, you know what I mean. To me, it was a separation of who's supposed to be winning in the 2000s and who's supposed to be winning in the 210s. Now, the guys who are supposed to be winning in the 210s, as far as their prime, they end up playing together instead of against each other. That's what they did. So basically, all those guys cheated the NBA. They cheated the competition of the NBA. And you basically have a fraudulent 210, 2011, all the way until, 2020, 2021. It was basically fraudulent. Because these guys weren't playing competitive basketball. Because they didn't come together out of their prime. Let's say if they came together about Dwayne Wade, Bosh, and LeBron James. To me, I would have to say about 2000, maybe 14. Maybe 14. Because he came into the league 2003, 2004. So it would have to be, to me, it would have to be about 2014. And then they would end up really getting old because It would go 14, 15, and 16, and maybe 17 if they now built that super team. We could understand that, like a Clyde Drexler, you know. Oh, we forgot about the other super team, the Kobe Bryant, the Shaq, the Karl Malone, and the Gary Payton. How did that work out? Not too good, because a lot of these guys were out of their prime. It didn't work out. And then we got the other super team with the Wade, the Shaq. Shaq went super team back to back. This is crazy. This is how bad his work ethic was. So Wade, Shaq, Alonzo Mourning, and Gary Payton. How'd that work out? I think they were together 4 years and won NBA Finals championship. So this is what we mean when a team can be young super team or old busted up. Because if they would have started in 2014, the LeBron James super team, remember the excuse was the Bosh, the Waste, they were all busted up and broke. That's why they lost 2014, right? That was the excuse. Even though, you know, what was really the excuse, because the Spurs were old too, busted up and broke, but they was on a mission. So he didn't put together a super team out of his prime that was old and busted up and broke, and let me try to win one. No, it was in their prime, coming off of MVP, coming off of, I think Wade was, you know, top 3 MVP the year before, something like that. It was crazy. And, you know, I think Wade was the second best shooting guard in the league, and we all know the story. And then he gets even younger when he goes for Kyrie and Love. Gets even younger. Because he didn't go to college, so he's not too much, well, he's younger than them, but way younger, but still. He was younger than Wade and Bosh. So he was still ready to go, and we're trying to find out what super team he played in the finals. Because it wasn't the Mavs. A lot of them were old. Dirk Nowitzki wasn't no spring chicken. I think Dirk Nowitzki came in, I want to say 98 too. 98 off season, right? 98, 99. So that was already like 11 years into his career once he went to that finals and beat the Heat, beat LeBron James. We know Kid, he came in like in the mid 90s. Not the Spurs. Oh, I know what they were gonna say OKC. Wow, a team who drafted all their players. Another team he played that drafted all their future Hall of Fame players. James Harden, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook. Same with the Spurs, and same with the Golden State to an extent. But even getting Kevin Durant still wasn't a super team. Because it was only Steph Curry and Kevin Durant who was other teams' #1 franchise players who were Hall of Famers. So in essence, LeBron James is the only, I want to say the only NBA player in NBA history, as far as all-time great, who built a super team in his prime, never faced a super team in the finals, and I don't think he ever faced a super team in a regular season. Who was that? Oh, yeah, besides Boston. Yep, Boston, he faced an old, busted up and beat up super team. And in the playoffs. The problem was when he was in Cleveland the first time, they were so busted up and broke. Yes, they won the championship in 2008, but he took them all the way to a game 7, shooting some of the worst percentages you ever seen from the 3, from the field, from the line, in turnover city. And then back-to-back seasons had the #1 seed over them. In 2010, they were a 4 seed. That mighty Boston Celtics team was a 4 seed, where he melted down with the #1 overall record in the NBA. He then go builds his super team in their prime. So basically, this guy has been the only player, not Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan didn't have no super team. Where was that? Dennis Rodman wasn't another team's #1 franchise player. Scottie Pippen was not another team's #1 franchise player. Tony Kukoc was not another team's #1 franchise player. Who was it? Well, we know it's not Horace Grant. See, the thing about that is, things like that back in those days, and we talk about what Michael Jordan's agent said the other day, and how, if he would have did that, he would have won. Well, if he would have did that in his prime and did it with guys still in their prime, he would have won like 15 rings. The thing that they forget to tell you is why players wasn't doing that back in the day. Because if you won a championship and you won it in your prime, and all the guys were in their prime, the big three that came together, it wouldn't be respected. It wouldn't be respected. When we talk about the big three Celtics in the 2000s, okay, whatever. Nobody talks about that was one of the best championship runs of all time. In fact, some people say they only won because Andrew Bynum was hurt. We don't know that for sure, but everybody knows that was one of the weakest rings of all time. Even though they were out of their prime, yes, no problem. But when you look at the totality, and they were together for like 6 years, and only had the #1 seed one time, and only won one NBA Finals, nobody looks at that team for anything. It was a team that it was guys that built a super team out of their prime, and basically got lucky to go to the finals. They got lucky. Remember, LeBron James took them in 2008, did 7 games, and he pretty much melted down in 2009 because he didn't want 2010 because he didn't want to play him. Remember, that's that same team in 2009 that the Magic beat. The Magic beat them in the playoffs. But LeBron James couldn't beat the Magic? And he couldn't beat Boston the next season? How does that make any sense? So you can really say that they really didn't have no business being in the finals in 2008 if he just would have put up decent percentages. Because when you look at his averages, they were pretty good. But it took him a lot of shots just to average that, and then his turnovers, his missed free throws, and blah, 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 blah. So you can say, because he just came back, he was just in the finals 2007. And again, he took that Boston team to a game 7 in 2008. But if he would have just had his percentages up, they would have never went to the finals at all. When we talk about that year in 2010, when he was supposed to beat them, and they were a 4 seed. Who was that beat Pippen? Charles Barkley and Hakeem Olajuwon. I think it was the Lakers. If I'm not mistaken. So basically, he was able, not only in the finals, because the finals is one thing, but was able to play the East with a prime super team for like 8 years in a row. And come to think about it, we was talking about this the other day, how they only had the #1 seed with those 2 super teams 2 times in 8 seasons. And to me, we were talking about, well, how's that possible? Well, Michael Jordan never had a super team and had the #1 seed in the East 5 times when he won his 6 championships. How's that possible? And then we were talking about, well, he just lays back. They don't want to put forth no effort. They can just chill because they got this super team and let everybody else put forth this effort, and we just cruise. But now I kind of think that they did this so it wouldn't look like this super team was all that mighty. Because if they got the #1 seed won the East every year, it would look like what it's supposed to look like. A super team in their prime. Which actually they should have broke the regular season record a couple times. They should have out of 8 seasons with that super team, I would say they should be in the top 5 of best records of all time. No, top 3 with Miami and Cleveland. Why? Because there was no competition in the East. Zero. The best competition they had for it was the old busted up Celtics. I think they took them to a game. They were on the verge of losing to that Boston team again in 2012. I think it was the semifinals. They were on the verge of, they had one more game to lose and they were out. I think they were down like 3-1 or something like that. And then they end up winning the rest of them or something like that. But yeah, after that little surge that the Boston Celtics did, that was it after 2012. Nobody else was in the East. Especially when we get to Cleveland, the second. Nobody was in that East. And when we talk about Dwight Howard on that Lakers team, let's be serious. This guy came into the league after LeBron James. And he came straight out of high school. So do we really want to qualify that as old? Now, we can say, I guess we can say they both were out their primes. And they had the best center in the league. And Dwight Howard, one of the greatest defensive players of all time. And he's never been a great offensive player. So I think it was easy for them to win that title. So LeBron was out of his prime. Howard was out of his prime, but they had the best center. Because Joker hadn't emerged yet as the best center in the 2020s. It was still Anthony Davis. And I guess you can say an old Rondo out of his prime, he'll probably end up making the Hall of Fame. Was Reeves on? I don't think Reeves was on that team. And then we had the super duper team, basically out of their prime, except for Anthony Davis. What was that? 2021, 22. And they didn't even make the play-in. We can't lead that team out because it's a super team out of their prime. And after that, which may have been the most embarrassing moment of his career, besides 6 finals blowout losses, in 4 of them with super teams, that they're not even making the play-in. So again, that was another moment, another instance of the LeBron James era stealing money from the fans. Because you can imagine how much they were charging to park, for merch, for alcohol, for food. You got all these different jerseys now that say Howard, that say Westbrook, that say, what's this other guy's name? Can't remember the other guy's name. But of course, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and Carmelo Anthony. You got all these jerseys. They selling all these Laker jerseys and merch and these guys. What? It's not even possible. How would that even be possible? You can't even make a play-in. So that's all I'm saying right there. We had to constitute what makes a super team, whether in our prime and out of their prime. That's what a super team is. Second of all, did LeBron James ever play a super team? No, not in the finals. No. Not one super team. He played one super team in the East when he was in Cleveland the first time, a super team that was out of their prime, and then he played a super team with his super team that was in their prime, and the Celtics were, again, on their last leg, out of their prime. So basically, he went with his super team. He went through the entire East for 4 years, or with his super teams, and was able to go to the finals without playing these super teams, except for the old busted up Celtics. I think they played them twice, if I'm not mistaken. I think they played them in 12 and 13. And 13 was even more of a beatdown. And that's it. He never played a super team. But yet he will tell you, the media will tell you, that this guy played all kinds of super teams in the finals. And that's why he is 4-6. Never played one super team in the NBA finals. And besides that old busted up Celtics super team, that's all he played. So basically, this guy has been able to steal all this money from NBA fans, from the NBA, for something that never happened. In a video I made earlier, I said, man, this guy's a good businessman. He's able to be one of the biggest failures of all time and still come out on top by paying off the media. And the NBA as a whole is okay with this. The owners, the players, the commissioner. And I hear a lot of channels. I think we want to make up excuses for what's going on. And we need to stop. Because there's no excuse when this guy says certain things on his podcast, or what's his name? Rich Paul says certain things about these antlers, or LeBron James says certain things that sound stupid and goofy. And I hear people on their channels say, I can't believe they said this. Are they that stupid? I can't believe it. This is how stupid they are. No, they're not stupid. You think they just make a video and then don't watch it? You think they make a video and somebody else know, hey, you know you said this, right? Everybody's going to see it. You know this don't make no sense, right? About the antler thing or about this, they know. Yes, they do know. That's the thing. It's gonna, if they say this, then it's more hype for them. It's more controversy for them. They know what they're saying. You got to be a dummy to think that they don't know what they're saying. Of course they know what they're saying. Because what is wrong today is right. And you ain't gonna make no money off telling the truth. We already know that. And the fact that they don't turn this whole thing around, you doing it the wrong way, puts you in a GOAT debate. You doing it the wrong way puts you as one of the greatest players of all time in the top 2. You doing it the wrong way gets you back for another year. You doing it the wrong way, you're able to control the NBA and the media. If I can't win the right way, well, let's do it the other way. Control the media. Therefore, you have, not only do you control the media, you control the entire NBA, because there's no guys even clapping back in his era. Whether it was the 2010s and now it's the 2020s. How come Joker ain't saying nothing about this? How come Luka ain't said nothing about this? How come Kevin Durant ain't said nothing about this? Or Devin Booker? Or Jason Tatum, or Anthony Edwards, or any player in this era? How come they don't have a voice? Chris, what was it? Paul George, the guys that had to play as super teams all through the 2010s. How come Tim Duncan didn't say it was unfair? How come Dirk Nowitzki didn't say it was unfair? How come Derrick Rose didn't say it was unfair? How come Steph Curry didn't say it was unfair? Even if you thought that he had a super team in 17, 18, what about 15 and 16? Why haven't these guys ever said that it was unfair? That this guy built a super team twice in his prime, and nobody in the entire league as a player never said nothing about it. Where's their voice? You think if something like that, Michael Jordan, say he lost to the Pistons in 91. Because Michael Jordan, he won the MVP in 91. He had the best record in the East. And he didn't have a super team, but he was going up against those Celtics that were going for a three-peat. I mean, not the Pistons, who were going for a three-peat now. And they were scheduled to beat the Bulls. They didn't have the Bulls winning. So he loses. And Scottie Pippen wasn't even an all-star that season. So he loses. Now it's time for Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan, and Patrick Ewing. So you're trying to tell me that Hakeem ain't going to say nothing about it? What about Isaiah Thomas? All this guy does is run his mouth. He would have said something about it. Bill Lambert would have said something about it. Hakeem Olajuwon, Malone, Stockton. Even players coming into the league. Shaq came in 92. He was like, Dr. J would have said something about it. Magic Johnson, even guys that won in the NBA at the time. Maybe Clyde Drexler said something about it. and so on and so on. And what was be said about it is that we can't take his championship serious because we never built a super team in our prime. We never got 3 guys from other teams who were number 1 franchise players and future Hall of Famers in their prime. We never seen this before. So they all come together in the East, Barkley, Jordan, and Ewing, and just destroy the East. So how are those championships respected? You know, I know people are going to say, oh man, that's a crazy comparison. You know, maybe Bosh is not on one of those guys' level. Maybe not Barkley, maybe not Ewing or Jordan, but you don't know what Bosh's career would have been if he would have played without LeBron James. Numbers would have been way better. He might have been a top 75 player. Now, will he have won a championship? Nobody knows. But what about the rest of them? LeBron James, Wade, if they don't come together, do they win a championship? Who knows? And how many? So you can't say whatever you want to say about Chris Bosh. So what we're trying to say is his championships wouldn't be respected by all-time greats that either came before him, or Wilt Chamberlain was alive at the time, Bill Russell wouldn't respect that, Havlicek wouldn't respect that, Jerry West wouldn't respect that, Clyde Walt Frazier wouldn't respect his championships, Kareem, and the list goes on and on. Whether they were present players or players at the time, those championships wouldn't be respected. What he did in the East, Michael Jordan, Barkley, and Ewing, as far as them playing competition in the East or the West, it don't matter. His career wouldn't be respected to be a top 5 player. Maybe not even a top 10 player. So when we look at the guys in the top 10, the Michael Jordans, the Wills, the Kareem, the Kobes, the Russells, the Birds, the Magics. I think I said Magic already. Let's say Kobe, Shaq, Tim Duncan. I think I'm missing one guy. You know, just those guys like that. I think Larry Bird, did I say him? They never did that. They never built a super team in their prime with other teams' number 1 franchise players. And not only did that, did it twice. After it failed the first time, it did it twice. So none of those guys did that. And then when we go outside the top 10, you're talking about, you know, the Jerry Wesses. Oh, I think we missed Hakeem. You know, the Karl Malones, the Charles Barkleys. And the list just goes on and on. Nobody else did that in our prime. It ain't like he went and got two, you know, other teams' number 1 franchise players out of their prime. He didn't do that. Basically, that's what Dwayne Wade did. And it didn't work. It worked for one season. That's it. But he made it work, at least for one season. So Dwayne Wade knew, like, okay, if I do it, I'm going to have to do it with guys who are busted up and beat up. And I think LeBron James did that to an extent when he got Shaq, when he got Ben Wallace, and, you know, but he couldn't make it work. But I'm just saying, how's this guy in the top 10? How's he 1 or 2? How is none of these all-time great players, whether it's in the past or in the present, not allowed to say nothing on the level of what I'm talking about? Because when we hear Michael Jordan's agent and the things he said, a lot of things need to get put in perspective. And I know he mentioned something about this, Michael Jordan, him picking his team, he would win 15. But when you put it in a deep, real context of what this guy basically did twice, and it wasn't like he was going against super teams. He didn't go against one super team. The best so-called super team he went against was not a super team. Golden State Warriors. 2 guys from other teams who were number 1 franchise players, future Hall of Fame, Curry and Durant. That's it. Clay ain't from another team. Draymond Green wasn't from another team. I'm just saying, man. I'm gonna get off of here, but I'm just saying the NBA has been one of the biggest scams since this guy started building the super teams and went to Miami. And now he continues to ruin these other guys' careers by staying in the spotlight when he did it wrong. And you just gotta scratch your head why, like I said, none of these players, whether past or present, say nothing. Say nothing to this extent. Because we just couldn't even imagine no other player doing this, whether it was Will Russell, Jerry West, Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, and the list goes on and on, Tim Duncan. And like I said, if it's out of prime, that's fine, because we done seen it before. And this is basically why the NBA is like it is today. This guy screwed it up, and you can never fix it again. It's finished. There's like we said, man. When I was making a video of Uncut Hoops and them holding SGA to a new standard of the NBA just because he won the MVP. Now you want to hold him and say, "Oh, okay, you should have your own standard because you just won the MVP." Him foul baiting is something new. No, it's not nothing new. It's been like that in the 2020s. There's no rules in the 2020s because there's no real officials. They travel, they carry, they flop, they foul bait. In Uncut Hoops, try to put it on SGA as the leader. Which again, if he wanted to make the video, that's fine. Which is still wrong. But the fact that he made it right after the guy won the MVP, that tells us Uncut Hoops' agenda. It tells us his agenda. That he's mad that Joker didn't win MVP. Joker, who carries, travels, and hooks people. So what's the difference if you're breaking the rule foul baiting, or you're doing it wrong foul baiting, but this Eric carries, travels, Joker carries, travels, and he hooks his opponent. And I'm not trying to say he's the only one that does it, but he does it. And, you know, it's sour grapes to me with this guy. You know what I'm saying? He makes good video, good material, whatever like that. You know, but that's sour grapes to me. That you would try to call this guy out. And yeah, he made a video and it had, you know, who was that? Trae Young. And come on, man, Trae Young. Who cares about Trae Young? And you're trying to, you know, put him with Trae Young, and you're trying to hold SGA to the Michael Jordan standard. I promise, man. It's the same thing with Scat, man. You got to watch these guys because they'll come out with their agendas. Sooner or later, the agenda will come out. And most of these guys' agenda is just money. They don't really care about the NBA. Yes, they can do good work and material on the NBA, but at the same time, they have an agenda, and that's it. And that's just to make money. And, you know, some of them might be getting money from, you know, other people that play in the NBA. You know, like FYF, it might be getting money from Lebron and the Gilbert Arenases to make videos. And, you know, Dreamer Pro, he get money from, you know, ESPN, Fox, and Disney. So a lot of these dudes are fake. I ain't saying Uncut is fake, but a lot of these dudes is fake. They don't care about the NBA. They're just in it to make videos, to make money. They don't care about the NBA, man. They care less about the NBA. So you guys tell me what you think. This guy has never played a super team in the finals, LeBron James. And at that, got beat while he had a super team in his prime against teams that didn't have a super team in the finals. And the fact that in the East, he was playing all these weak teams that didn't have a super team, he was able to get the number one seed only 2 times. I'm just saying.